All right, everybody, welcome back. Let's get rid of that. There we go. All right, everybody, welcome back. We are going to talk about more data entry type stuff and expanding our skill set within Excel in how to insert information and analyze information kind of in a basic sense. So this should be 1-3. Where we left off before was just typing in some numbers, and we have one cell right here which is referencing B2 and B3. B4 is the cell that has the cell references inside it. So let's say we wanted to set up our sheet so that we have multiple income and expenses. So since I already have this outline, income, expense, and net income, I want to insert some rows. So what I can do is if I click on the number 3, it'll highlight the entire row. Another option, a shortcut option, is if I click anywhere in row 3, I can hold the shift key and hit the space bar one time, and that will also highlight the whole row. So shift space bar highlights the row. And then I can either right click and click insert, and it will insert a new row. Or if I do shift space bar, I can then do control plus, which on the keyboard, plus is shift equals. So control shift equals sign is the same as control plus. And that will also insert a row. So control plus inserts multiple rows. And so now I can have multiple streams of income in here. So I can say sales, income, service. I don't know what kind of business this is, but it's a company that does both sales and service. Let's say it's Apple, and they charge for using their Apple Store, their equivalent of Geek Squad, whatever that is. And they have sales where they sell products also. So we have sales income, we have service income. They have two different kinds of income. And then I'm going to change this top one to be called total income. And then let's say I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. And we're going to have multiple types of expenses. So I'm going to say total expenses. And then we'll have marketing expense as an option. And we'll have debt repayment. This obviously is not, correct as far as accounting majors are concerned, but I'm just going to use this as an example. And so I'm going to insert a couple more rows just to give us more spacing here. And then let's do salaries. That's an expense, and that's probably fine. So now I'm going to delete this number and delete this number, and we'll fill those in just a second. So now we have our income section, we have our expenses section, and we have our net income at the bottom. So I don't know what my total income is going to be, but I'll fill in, let's say our sales income is 100, and this could be, in millions and thousands, whatever. I'm just going to say 100. Let me keep it small numbers right now. Let's say our service income, we sell quite a bit of things, but most of our bread and butter comes from serving those products. And so let's say we have 200 in service income. So our total income will be the combined income between sales and service. And in real life, you probably would have a line for other income, but we're not going to do that right now. So our total income would be equal to our sales income plus our service income. And all I'm doing is typing the equal sign, clicking the cell that I want to include, then typing the plus sign and clicking the next cell that I want to include. And I know that I have the correct cells selected because B3 right here shows up in a blue font, and cell B3 has a blue box around it. The same goes for B4, which is red, and the B4 is red. And I know that I would like to add these two together, and I can clearly see that that is what's happening in this formula. And if for some reason I couldn't see it here, there's a formula bar at the top that also shows me what's going on. So it's very clear that I'm adding B3 plus B4, and I hit enter. So my total income is 300, which is correct. If any of these numbers were to change, let's say service income was actually 100, then my total income updates to 200, which is what I want. I'll go ahead and change that back to 200. So now we know that our total income is the addition of sales and service income, which is perfect because now we can use that total income number to find our net income later. We want to do the same thing for our total expenses. So we'll throw in a marketing expense of, let's say, 75, debt repayment of 15, and salaries, which is the biggest portion of corporate expenses a lot of times. I guess it depends on the company, but in our case, we'll say it's a big one. So we'll say it's 150. And I didn't do the math ahead of time, but I think we're going to be okay. So what you need to do is find our total expenses and say our total expense is equal to, I can do the same thing. I can select the cell, I can hit plus, or a better option is I can say our total expense is equal to the sum. By typing the word sum, I get options for specific types of formulas. In this case, sum is a formula there are other formulas. If instead of sum, I wrote quotient. Oops. Quotient is one, which would be a division, returns the integer part of a division. But so there's that. There's I don't know, standard deviation, STDEV, calculates the standard deviation of certain numbers. You can do all kinds of different formulas. In this case, we're going to deal with sum because we're adding things together. And so when that drop-down menu shows up and you can see that sum is highlighted, you can either double-click on it, which will select it, or you can type sum and hit the tab key, and that'll select the one that's highlighted as well. So sum, and then I want to select multiple cells that are going to be added. So I can say, I can click this one and then hit comma and click this one and hit comma and hit this one. And that says sum B7, B8, and B9. That's one option. Or if I didn't want to type that much, type all the commas and click the cells, I can click and drag and select those cells all at once, B7. And then this colon means everything between B7 and B9, which in this case is only B8, but you know, there could be a scenario where there are like 45 cells in a row that you're adding, in which case it's, you know, it's not as simple as just B7 through B9. It's could be B7 through B200 or something. It could be whatever. So that is also an option. We go ahead and close parentheses and then hit enter. And so now our total expenses are 240, our total income is 300, and we want to find our net income, which equals 300, which is total income, minus 240, our total expenses. Hit enter. So our net income is 60. Now, if I want to make this look a little nicer, I can go ahead and put some lines in there that do like a double bottom line because we're finding our net income. So I'll do that. Double bottom line happens to be the bottom part of a cell. So I have to click the cell above it so that I could get the bottom line to show up above, right above the 60. So what I'll do is I'll click the cell above where I want it to be. And then this box right here lets me select borders. And so if I click down, there's multiple border options. There's quite a few. And if you wanted to, you could actually create your own. In this case, we're going to do double bottom border, which is double bottom line. I'm going to click on that one, and you can see that net income has a double bottom line. We can also click on total expenses. And if I hold the control key, I can click multiple cells at one time. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on 240, which is B6. I'm going to hold the control key, and I'm also going to click on B2. And then with both of those cells selected, I'm going to go back to my border tab. I'm going to click my drop down, and in this case, I'm going to do bottom border, which is the very first choice, and then unclick. And so now I have total income with a border and total expenses with a border, and then it kind of segments the totals from the individual components. So there's a couple other things I can do to make it look a little nicer. I can highlight these options, and again, holding control, I can also highlight these ones. These are the components of our total income and total expense, which would be nice if I segmented those out more than just with a line. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to indent those. Up here is this blue arrow is an option for indent. So I'm going to click on it once to indent. And so now I have total income, indented my components of income, total expenses, indented my components of expenses, and my net income. And so now it looks a little bit nicer than it did before. One more thing I could add is a title to this, this little spreadsheet I have, and that could be income statement. And so what I could do is I could just type income statement at the top, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's clear what it is. It's a header. If I wanted to make it obviously a header, I could also make it bold, or I could, you know, put a line there or something, you know, and that's all fine. But another way that looks, I think, a little more clean and like a little bit more like you know what you're doing is if you type income statement in that first cell, but then you stretch it across the two cells. So in order to do that, you would click and drag to highlight A and B1. And then up here is an option for merge and center. If you click merge and center, what it does is it makes A1 and B1 combined into one cell and puts it right at the top. And so that with a little line looks pretty nice. I think that's a pretty clean, nice way to show an income statement. Obviously, this is not the you know, the accounting preferred way to structure an income statement. This is just us using this as an example. But if you were an accounting student, you wanted to create, you know, a GAAP approved version of an income statement, you could easily do that in Excel as well. You would just have to format it appropriately. And not all of us are accounting majors, so I'm not going to worry about doing that in this session. So that's just basic data entry, kind of formatting some text to make it look nice, and that I think is a pretty good way to go for there. In the next episode, we'll talk about downloading data and using data from the internet. Great, and I hope to see you there. Thanks.